Hello and welcome back to my craft room. Well, it's very cold and icky out there here in my part of the UK, so it's a perfect time to be here cosy in my craft room trying a new craft. Now, those of you who know me well will know that I probably have enough hobbies already, but you'll also know that it's always fun to try something new, isn't it? Now this is something which it's a very old craft, and it's not even completely new to me because I did try it many years ago, back in the late 70s, believe it or not. And back in the late 70s, here's what I was using. Do you know what it's for? Extra points if you can tell me what this is. So let's go to my desk and I'll tell you what I'm up to. So this is tatting. These are tatting shuttles. When I mentioned that I'd got some tatting shuttles in a parcel, Tom thought I was winding him up. And it's an old, I don't know how old it is, but I think it goes way back, a way of making lace, and it tended to be used for making quite everyday lace for edging hankies or household linens or children's clothes, that kind of thing. Now what I'd love to do, you can see that I've started to have a go at here, is create some of this old-fashioned kind of lace, because I just love the look and feel of it. I love the texture of it, but in these kind of more modern, kind of funky colours. This was my old shuttle that I had back in the 70s when I went to do some classes, some evening classes. I don't know if they still do it, but you used to be able to go to these adult education evening classes. They were held at local colleges and schools and things. I did one for tatting, and I did one for watercolour, and I did another one for macrame. I love doing those kind of things. These days I sit in front of YouTube and learn that way instead. We didn't have YouTube then. So this was my old shuttle then, and the shuttles vary a lot. So this is a really plain basic one. I can't even read what the make was now. I think it might have been Millwood. There we go, that's just come into focus and I can see it better on camera than I can with my eyes. It is Millwood, who of course, you know, make needles and things. I've got lots of things with the Millwood name on. They also come with these kind of little hook shapes. These are the ones that I've just now received. These are the ones that I've been using this weekend. They've got this handy little kind of hook shape at the end, and some of them have actual metal hooks. Some of them are like these. They've just got you can see a post in the centre with a hole that you put the thread through and you just wind it on. Some of them have a bobbin that removes. You wind your bobbin with thread and click it back in. One thing I really love is this noise. Hang on. Just love that noise. It's like a kind of productive fidget spinner, isn't it? So I got these, I should mention, I got these shuttles from a parcel of goodies from a company called VIP Cross Stitch. I'll show you a quick look actually, hang on. This is a company called VIP Cross Stitch. They recently approached me to say they'd like to send me some products of theirs to try out and do a review on camera. I was allowed to choose whatever I liked up to a certain budget, so I said yes please. I had a look and thought, yes, there's quite a few things in here that I would find appealing. They do a lot of cross stitch and that kind of thing, and I've already got one big cross stitch on the go, so I didn't need another one. But if you look here, they've got this thing they call crochet and knitting tools, and within that there are loads and loads of different things which are kind of very much my cup of tea. So I had a few things from VIP Cross Stitch. I've already featured them in a couple of videos before, but I haven't. This is the first time I've got around to trying the tatting, and I've had them for ages now. I see that there's free shipping if you spend over $50. Obviously you have to pay shipping if it's under that amount, but I don't know how much it is. I can't tell you that. They seem to send, you can set your own currency up here, and they seem to send all over the place. There's United States dollars, there's euros, New Zealand, Polish, Swedish, Japanese, South African. They seem to send all over the place. They certainly arrived with me very quickly once I'd chosen what I wanted, and all the products I've had so far I've been really happy with. So that's them. You can see here that I just had this pair of shuttles, and I couldn't, on a quick look, I couldn't see this just a pair, but this is 7 shuttles. Is it 7? Yeah, 7 pieces. They're showing more than 7 there, but it's 7. They're just trying to make it look like a pretty flower, I guess that shows all the colours you might get. This set of 7 tatting shuttles is £2.83. Crazy, isn't it? I mean, if you click on crochet knitting tools here, you can see all the kind of, it's all kind of wools and crochet items. I found all kinds of things. Keep meaning to get one of those ball winders. Maybe I should have asked for one of them. Oh, here's the one. This is the one that I had. Found it now. £1.63 for the 2. So that's a quick look at them. So now, some weeks later since I received the parcel that they sent me, I finally got around to having a go at the tatting. And this is what I did yesterday, just trying to get my head around how it works. That's probably, well, that was my latest piece. I mean, they're a bit wonky. I don't mind wonky. I'm not going to be making beautiful uniform edgings for handkerchiefs and things like that. I will probably just use little scraps of this in my slow stitching projects, so it's perfect for that. And it was really quite satisfying to do once I got into the swing of it. I have kind of, like you do with a lot of crafts, I kind of found my own way with it a little bit. I'm not going to call this, I quite liked this little leaf that I tried to do but failed a bit, but you know, it'll still work on a slow stitching project. You might, if you're one of the people that I've arranged to swap with in the Great Big Little Stitchery Swap, you might find some of these scraps of tatting showing up on your squares. So I'm not going to call this a tutorial. What I'm going to do is link to a couple of YouTube channels that I've found really helpful that explain it all really, really well. So if you want a proper tutorial, I would suggest go and watch one or both of them. The shuttles are either like this, where you've just got a plain, you know, it's the same both ends, or you get the ones like this that have got a little kind of hooked end, and some of them actually have a metal hook in the end. I don't have that, so I've got handy this little very small crochet hook, metal crochet hook. It needs to be quite a small one like that. Other than that, all I need is my thread and a pair of scissors. It's a very portable hobby. I mean, I could put this in one of my lovely little project bags that people have given me, and you know, the whole lot will fit in there. That's, you know, it's a really nice thing to take downstairs or sit in the conservatory in an afternoon listening to my audiobook and doing a bit of tatting. Bliss. In the middle they either have just an arrangement like this where you've got this kind of post with a hole through it to put the thread through, and you just wind the thread round. So you just wind it on like this. I love this noise. Oh, hey, love that. Some of them have a bobbin that sort of slots in, so you push the bobbin out, wind a thread on, pop it back in. I found these really nice to use, and I think probably nicer to use than this, which was my old one. Right, so to start making this little trim, there's different ways. It depends on what you're doing. Sometimes you work with 2 shuttles with the thread between 2 shuttles on either end of the thread, so they're both wound onto the same kind of length of thread, if that makes sense. Sometimes you just use 1 shuttle and a length of thread. Sometimes you use a shuttle and ball, and that's what I'm going to do this time. I'm going to use a shuttle and ball. So let's which colour? Let's go with this colour. I'm trying to think what colour will show best on camera. I think that might be better. I think that might show better on camera. And it's really easy to wind on, and you don't need a huge amount either. So I'm going to probably wind on about 1.5 meters, but it probably doesn't need to be anything like that long really for the amount I'm going to do. You can join thread in later, but I haven't learned how to do that yet. So I've pulled off about 1.5 meters ish, and I'm just going to put this is how I do it anyway. I think you can knot it here, but I just put it through that hole to start with. I'm just holding it on here for a minute while I start winding, and apparently it's a good idea to, although I don't fully understand why, to if that's looking at your shuttle front on, you wind anti-clockwise. And in a minute I'll be able to let go of this end and it'll be a bit easier, but I just want to wait until I've caught that in so it doesn't, there we go. And it's quite easy to wind on, and I do love that noise. I'm going to cut this little end off now and just wind on, as I say, about 1.5 meters. I'm going to speed through this in a minute when I'm editing, see what this sounds like. I find sometimes it gets twisted And if I just hold it by an end and just let it untwizzle itself like that, it starts me getting in a knot. Okay, so we've got the ball on one end and the shuttle on the other, and we're all ready to go. You'll see that in this little simple little trim, it's made up of a series of rings, and these linking parts are called chains. So you make a ring, then you make a chain, and then you make another ring, and you link to the previous ring. Then you make another chain, start a new ring, link to the previous ring, and you go along like that for as long as you want to go. I haven't learned how to turn the corner yet. I have to watch another tutorial for that. The whole thing is just made up of the one stitch and the gaps in between the stitch. So leaving gaps in between the stitches are what create these little loops, which are called picos. So it's really simple. So to make a start, the first thing I'm going to do is make the ring, and you wrap the thread around your 4 fingers, and then pinch the 2 lengths of thread between your thumb and forefinger, and extend your middle finger like that to create a gap between, which is what you work into, and also to control the tension. So to make the stitch, you first need to go under both of these threads, and there seem to be slightly different styles of doing this depending on who you're watching. The one that I settled on, you kind of deliberately put your hand under there to get the shuttle under both, and that becomes quite an easy movement to do. So you go under there, under that loop, back over the thread on your hand and through the loop, and you end up with this. And at the moment, that thread, the shuttle thread, is wrapped around the thread that's in my hand. You want it the other way around, and the way you do that, because you need the shuttle thread to be the kind of core thread that's in your hand wrapped around it, if that makes sense. So the way you change that, you transfer the knot is what they call it, is you straighten out this shuttle thread, you pull on it to straighten it out, whilst at the same time relaxing the tension in the thread that's in your hand. And it, like magic, transfers the knot. So now the thread that's in my hand is wrapped around the shuttle thread, which is what you want. And then you pinch that little first half of the stitch that you've just made between your thumb and forefinger. Now, it's the second part of the stitch that I'm having issues with. And I've looked at 2 or 3 different ways, slightly different ways that people do it, and I cannot, I've invented my own way because I cannot quite get the hang of it. The American lady was holding the shuttle like this, and the French lady was holding it more like this. The French lady now, at this point, appears to just go like this, and she explains it all really well and really slowly. It looks so easy when she does it, and then brings it back through. The gist of it is that you want to carry your thread over that thread that's on your hand, and then back out under and through this loop. You can see there's a loop hanging here back through that loop. The American lady does it by going, in the first half of the stitch she talks about coming towards you. In this second half she talks about going away and doing this and back through that way. Now that has worked for me this time, but it doesn't always, and I find it awkward. And again with this, you loosen off the tension on this hand, pull it straight on this hand to transfer the knot. Snug it up next to the first part of the stitch, and you can see that has created the first stitch. And really that's the only stitch. As far as I can make out so far, this is the only stitch you use. If you've made the stitch right, you should now be able to slide it up and down along here. You should be able to pull more out that way or pull it through that way. If it doesn't move, you've done something wrong. I'm going to make another stitch, and this time I'll show you how I'm ending up doing that second half of the stitch, because if, like me, you're trying to learn to tat and you keep getting stuck on that second part of the stitch, maybe this will work for you. So I'm going, first part of the stitch, I'm going under both and bringing it back through the loop. And that first half of the stitch, I'm not finding a problem. I mean, I'm not trying to do it slowly at arm's length in front of the camera. I'm finding that bit quite easy. Snug it up next. Now what I'm doing now, my easy way, is just to go like this. Now it does mean I've got to slightly change the position of the shuttle in my hand, but that becomes very fluid quite quickly. And I'm just going back through there, which does exactly the same thing. So I'll take that out and do that again. I want to go over the thread that's in my hand and then back through here. So I'm just doing that. Transfer the knot again, and it works. You can see, there we go, it does exactly the same thing, and I just find it so much easier. This whole pattern it's all kind of in threes really, so it's ever so easy to remember. I mean, already having just done that little bit of it, I feel fairly confident that I could sit and listen to an audio book and follow this pattern without thinking about it too much. I couldn't watch the telly. I couldn't do something I've got to watch because I do need to be looking at what I'm doing, but I could definitely be listening to something. First part of my stitch, transfer the knot, pull it up. Second part of the stitch in my clumsy way. So now I've got 3 stitches. Now the next one is a picot, and the picots, my picots are really inconsistent, but it should be a small picot here because these are just for joining all the rings together. They're just joining ones. They shouldn't be big. They're not decorative as such. And then at the top here is a decorative little cluster of picots, so it should be a small one, a large one, a small one. You can see how inconsistent I am. For what I'm going to use this for, it doesn't matter, but if you wanted it to be neat and look right, it should, yeah, I just need to practice consistency. So to make the picot, it's really easy. It's still the same stitch, so you just start to form the stitch as usual. So that's the first half of my stitch. Transfer the knot, and then instead of putting it up snug to the previous stitch, I'm just leaving a tiny gap, and I'm trying to make myself remember that's the size of the gap. This one is going to be what I'll do for my small picots, because if I make that gap a different size every time, I get different size picots, and you can see that's what I've done here. So then you just finish the stitch as usual. And now, if I snug them up next to the previous stitch, this little hooky thing on the end of the shuttle is so useful for opening up the gap a bit more, unpicking a bit you did wrong, pulling out the loop as I'm doing now because it's twisted a bit. There we go. So now you can see I've got those first 3 stitches, then the picot, which has formed where I left that big gap between the stitches. That stitch that I used to finish the picot becomes the first in my next group of 3 stitches. So I just need 2 more stitches now. Oh, I went wrong then. And you find that you're constantly kind of pulling out a little bit extra thread as you start to use the thread up. It gets tight around your hand and you think, oh, pull out a bit more thread. If it won't pull out, again, it means you've done something wrong, probably not transferred the knot properly. So there we go, I've got 3 stitches, a picot, 3 stitches, and now I need to make my cluster, my decorative cluster of picots. So it needs to be a small one, a large one, a small one. I need to try and be consistent with the sizes. Okay, so first half of the stitch. Leave that. I'm trying to make that the same size gap as I had before. Finish the stitch, snug it up next to the other one. Now, have I got that the same size as the previous one? Nope, it's a bit bigger, but it's not too bad. Okay, so this next one is supposed to be a large picot. So I'll leave a longer gap this time. So what should we say? I'm just going to leave that sort of a gap. And this is so handy. If I think, oh no, just a little bit more, I'm just going to nudge it up a bit more. It's really useful, that thing. Finish a stitch. And that's my large picot. Probably a bit too large. But I'll try and make it the same all the way through now. For this particular piece. And if you go and watch a proper tutorial and watch whichever one, they do it slightly differently. That just the way they work and the way they hold the shuttle is slightly different. But if you watch the two ladies, they're just so fluid. It's such a fluid movement. I think I'm a long way from that, but you know, you've got to start somewhere. I was like this when I first started crochet too. It's amazing that you can learn all this online now, isn't it? I need to make one more small picot now. As far as I can remember, that's about what I did for a small picot. Okay, second part of the stitch. Oh, let's see, it's far too big. Oh, okay. This thing's very handy for unpicking too. So I'm going to unpick that's the second part of that stitch. Close up a smaller gap this time. That's better. Right. So now I've got, that's my, I need another group of 3 stitches. That last one that I finished my picot with counts as the first one, so I'm going to make 2 more. Whoops. One. 2. And now, as this will close up to become my ring, so I've got 3 stitches, a picot, 3 stitches, small, large, small picot, 3 stitches. Now I just need a picot, the same as I've got here, followed by 3 stitches, and then I can close up my ring. Okay, and now what I can do is just pull on this shuttle thread to close up the ring. A bit like when you do a magic ring in crochet. Okay. Definitely need to work on the consistency of my picots, but I'm quite happy with that. That will do. Oops, sorry, nutted the camera. It's very awkward doing this kind of thing on camera with the setup I've got at the moment anyway. At this point, to make the chain, so I've just made this first ring, now I'm going to make this chain. To do that, I'm actually going to turn my work kind of upside down like that, and when I make the chain it will naturally curve in that direction. So this time I'm not going to wrap the thread around the shuttle thread around my hand. This time I'm going to work on the thread that comes from the ball, and I'm going to just lay that across my 4 fingers and wrap it, for me, 2 or 3 times around my little finger to give it some tension. And I did find that a little bit awkward, so I'm still really getting used to it. And I'm going to make exactly the same stitches. This time I'm just wrapping them around there. So first half of the stitch, and again I'm doing 3. That's the first half of the first stitch. You need to make sure you snug it right up and don't leave any gap between the elements, between the rings and the chains. So, and that it can easily leave a gap there, so you've got to watch that. Second half of the stitch. Yeah, so I haven't left any gap there at all. But that can be, I did find that sometimes quite tricky. So again I want 3. So you can see my way is a little bit clumsy compared to if you look at the kind of fluid movement of the 2 ladies that I've been watching, but it works for me. Saved a lot of tears and frustration. So I've made my 3 stitches there. Now I want a small picot, and this will become the small picot that just runs along that edge where you would use it to stitch onto your project. So I've got to try and leave that small gap. Just, yeah, kind of trying to make it. It's the thing I'm having the most problem with, is keeping that gap uniform. It's funny, isn't it? I thought I was usually quite good at judging things by eye like that, but yeah. Okay, now it's another 3 stitches, but that one I've just done to finish the picot counts as the first, so I just need the 2 more. I do find I need to keep pulling on that thread that's wrapped around my little finger to adjust the tension. And 3. So that's my little chain that runs in between the rings. Now I'm going to turn the work back the other way up again and this time I'm going back onto the shuttle thread, wrapping it round to make a ring again. So again, a group of 3, and this is where I found it quite difficult to start this off without leaving a gap. I don't want to leave a gap between where I finished that chain and where this ring starts. I did find it quite tricky. There you go, you can see where there's a very slight gap, but I think that's okay. That's what you got to watch for. So I make my 3 stitches. That's 3, and you can see I've got a slight gap there, but it's not too bad. Now at this point, rather than carry on and finish the rest of the ring, I need to join it to the previous ring that I made first. So to do that, keeping everything on my hand, what I'm going to do now is use my little hook to go through this side picot and then pull through my ring like that, and then put the shuttle through it. So if you've got one of those shuttles with a metal hook on the end, obviously you can do that all in one movement, and then I can just tighten up that loop, make sure I'm not leaving a gap, make sure I can still pull through it. I can't. Yes I can. Yeah. So now what I've done is join into that previous ring, and now I can just carry on, do the set. That counts as the first half of that stitch. Now I can just complete that stitch, and the ring should still pull through like that if I've done it right. Yeah, another 2 stitches. So I've got 3 stitches, the one where I joined into the previous ring, and then 3 more stitches, and now I go back into small, large, small picot. So I'm going to finish the rest of this ring and then come back to you, see if I can get my picots a bit more consistent this time, eh? Last stitch in this ring now. So again, I've got my 3 stitches, join into the previous ring, 3 stitches, small, large, small picot, 3 stitches, small picot, 3 stitches, and now I can just gently pull on this and close up the ring again. And you know, you can see it's far from perfect, but I'm really oh look, it's just dawned on me that I could make little simple little heart shapes, couldn't I? That's quite a cute little heart shape, isn't it? Anyway, so then I would turn the work kind of upside down again and work onto the ball thread to make the next chain. So that's it. So that's where I am. That's only taken me half an hour. no, at least half of that was gabbing. Well, let's make myself a little thumbnail. Funny to think now, how many years ago was it I was using that one? It wasn't as late as 1980, so well, let's say it was 1980, it's easier for the maths. So that's 2040. What? Oh, I feel so old. So that's like 40 years ago I bought this to try tatting the first time. Wow, that's vintage now, that is. And it's got the thread wound on that I had wound on at the time. I feel really old now. That's where I'm at with it. I stress definitely, this was not meant to be a tutorial. This is just showing you my take on it, what I've learnt so far, and my little way of getting around the bit that I couldn't get the hang of. So I'm very open to any tips and suggestions. Have you tried tatting long ago like me, or recently? If you've got any tips and tricks, I'm very happy to take them on board. Or if you can suggest any other channels to watch, I will put links to the 2 ladies that I've been watching in the description box, and I will also link to VIP Cross Stitch, who very kindly sent me these shuttles amongst lots of other goodies to try. I've really enjoyed the things they sent me, actually. This little crocheted basket that I did came from the wooden base bit came from them. The little mini mending loom, you might have seen me do a video with that recently. Really enjoyed that, so definitely will be something I'll use again. So yeah, and again, quite an old-fashioned thing, but yeah, it's nice to see these things still being done. And this will be, you know, doing this tatting in the more sort of modern bright colours of thread, or just give it a bit of a modern spin. I'm also now starting to think, wouldn't it be fun if I just threaded some beads on as well before I wound it on the shuttle, and then just pull the beads through so that they came out on the end of the Picos? I bet that's been done. That's probably a thing already, but I need to be patient and learn the basics first. So yes, if you would like to see a proper tutorial, do go and check out those ladies. But I hope you enjoyed this little peek at what I've been doing. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you again really soon.